Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We're just going to give it a few moments for people to be able to come into um, the room, so to speak. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we will get started, although there are still some more folks coming in. We have a pretty packed agenda and want to make sure that our really fantastic speakers all get to tell you all about their work and what's been going on and what they have been experiencing and witnessing at our borders. So welcome. My name is Becca Wolf. I'm Senior Advocacy Strategist for the American Immigration Council. I'm really happy to be here with you all on this very busy week with a lot happening in the government around border issues. Some things that I am sure are very concerning to all of us have been happening. And so we hope that this is a good opportunity for folks to hear from people who are working at the border day in and day out. So this is At the Border, NGO and government responses. We have a packed panel, really excited. We have Jennifer Babey from Las Americas Immigrant Advocacy Center based in El Paso and Juarez, and also New Mexico. And we have Alfonso Chacon from the El Paso County Office of New Americans. Also Lore Gonzalez Flores from also the El Paso County Office of New Americans. Thank you to our government related folks for coming. We have Dahin Gustav from Haitian Bridge Alliance and also Gif Nelson from Haitian Bridge Alliance. I believe that's everyone. The way that we're going to do this, couple of sort of housekeeping items. We are recording for people who registered and couldn't participate, or even if you are here and just want it, we'll be sending out the recording of the webinar afterwards. We're also live streaming, and so people should just know that. If there are members of the press on, we are going to close the question and answer session to be off the record, but the rest of it is open to press for those of you who may be putting out questions or asking questions. There may or may not be media on the call. For people who have questions, we are going to try to leave some time at the end for a question and answer from our audience. And so please put those questions in the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your Zoom link, not the chat. We will not be monitoring the chat, and so that will not be particularly helpful. Because there are so many people on, we're not going to do live questions. We're just going to be doing written questions. We're not going to be able to answer hands raised and things like that. I believe that is those are all the announcements. Thank you all again. I'm first going to turn it over to Jennifer Babey. Please, tell us what your organization is doing and where you're at.
Great. Thanks, Becca. Hi, everyone. I am honored to kick us off. As Becca mentioned, I am with Las Americas Immigrant Advocacy Center. We are based in El Paso and also based in Ciudad Juarez, but we provide legal services to migrants and immigrant populations in southern New Mexico, all of West Texas, and quite frequently all across Mexico virtually. So we have a very wide footprint, and I'm going to go into some detail about what it means when I say we're providing services and what that really encompasses and who our community is. I run our legal department, and it is an expansive and a very wide variety of case expertise that we offer, because by virtue of being at the border here, we see community members with just such a wide array of immigration issues. So we have everyone from folks who are seeking to parole into the United States to seek asylum because they need an exception to the requirement to use CBP-1, which is the cell phone-based app to gain entry into our country at this time. So we work a lot with advocating to CBP to protect vulnerable victims and allow them to enter the US and have some access to our asylum system. That's a whole bucket of work. One of our main focuses is education and pro se information that is quality controlled and then also easily accessible. So a lot of that is translating legal expertise and knowledge as border policies shift week by week into something tangible that folks can read and review and share with their community members on WhatsApp, through our website. It's a creative form of pro se legal information. For our work in the US, we practice removal defense. So when I say that, the ICE jurisdiction here is actually predominantly in New Mexico. So although we are based in El Paso, if you look at the map, New Mexico could pretty much adopt us at any moment. And so because of that, the majority of the ICE detention centers happen to be across southern New Mexico. So what we do is a huge focus on credible fear interview preparation for asylum seekers that have been placed into custody. This work has been crucial as an early intervention model to try to get asylum seekers a chance to have a day in court. We're sharing a report later at the end of this presentation where we basically reviewed whether or not this kind of early intervention model for folks in these centers is worthwhile, if it makes a difference and an impact, if folks are prepped ahead of their interviews. And we found that it absolutely did. And so we are focused on trying to invest more resources to have pro bono partners help us by virtually preparing people for these interviews. We also practice before USCIS. Our community members here range from the elderly who may have lived here for several dozens of years, but have never adjusted their status. Maybe they've never gained citizenship, but they actually have a viable application. We are really about trying to get into the community and have them access low bono or pro bono immigration services. Our office is one of 2 nonprofits in all of West Texas that serves the migrant community in a pro bono fashion. And so our caseloads and our needs are extreme. And the cases are complex. It is an exception to have someone applying for adjustment of status or some other pathway in my work that doesn't have an inadmissibility issue or isn't permanently barred because they've been given difficult or incorrect advice about how to cross the border and how to adjust their status. So we require a personnel and a staff that are trained on pretty much the entire gamut of immigration law so that we can serve and respond to the community's needs. Also, of course, I'm going to be remiss to not mention that policy work is unavoidable in this day and age. At this time, we've got, I would say, 3 missions, 3 policy angles of what we're fighting for. One, and maybe I'm sure everyone is aware, is pushing the Senate to not destroy our asylum system. And a big part of that, it has pushed us into a new territory, which is traveling to DC, talking to our senators, spamming our senators, for a lack of a better word. When we traveled there in DC, I just want to share that, we found that a voice for the border was really lacking. And our interest now moving forward is how do we collectively represent our communities here and the very specific and unique immigration needs that they have in context of what the immigration reform nationally. And then later on, I can share more, but we also have a huge policy and strategic litigation push against the state of Texas. We are in the business of getting Texas back, and are going to be in Austin next week fighting a new bill that is a racial profiling, show me your papers law that I can share more information about later. But that is a small summary of what it takes to do immigration services down here.
Really appreciate that, Jennifer. And small, yes, tiny, not a lot going on there. Thanks for that. So we have some questions that we're going to ask our panelists just to get the conversation going, and then we're also going to ask you all to sort of have a little bit of a conversation after everyone gets a chance. So for you, Jen, we'd really love it. Can you sort of explain what changes you've seen in your area over the past year as policies have fluctuated, starting sort of with the end of Title 42, all the way up until some of the newer policies that have been implemented in the last, few months?
Yeah, it's almost like what has not changed. I think to build the background and context for the environment that we are working in and that my colleagues on the call are working in, we saw a transition very abruptly and very explicitly, where the administration is now embracing what I would describe and what we would describe as white supremacist, Trump era, conspiracy theory funded views on the border and on what's happening here, on what the community is willing and able to embrace, and on what kinds of resources we need. And that ties into what I was sharing, which is that we realized late last year that we can no longer consider policy something we do when we have time. It's a difficult thing for an organization of our size to take on because we're a staff of less than 20. We are a nimble staff of 20, but that's still a reality. And we're working in a city already dealing with its own under-resourced issues, just based on how the state of Texas manages appropriations and what cities they favor. It is, for example, some of our representatives do not have offices in El Paso. And so all of that is a huge shift for us because we have to figure out how do you continue to serve every vulnerable individual who comes to the door and is asking for information about what's going on. How do I apply for asylum? What am I eligible for? I don't have status, but I'm a victim of a crime. Can I be protected? And we need to be able to meet that demand and then still somehow convince the White House and our representatives that they need to follow the INA and basic asylum regulations, and that they cannot just close the border because deterrence does not work. And it's a matter of what facts will convince somebody who is a lawmaker at the moment that they are going to write policies that apply to the reality I see every day, and not what we're hearing on the Hill.
Yeah, very much appreciate that. And the distance, both sort of physically and psychologically, sometimes seems pretty immense. You've started to talk about this, but what resources do you see are the most needed, most urgently needed by people who have recently arrived?
First and foremost, I mean, you have the humanitarian need, right? I need to know I'm healthy, my children have food, I have shelter. Once you meet those needs, then you can think to, I need to work. I need an income so that I can continue to have shelter and feed my children. And so our focus for 2024 is how do we direct resources for folks who are still interested in immigration reform towards this employment, the right to employment, so early access to work authorization. So a big need at the moment right now is funding and volunteer staff, because we are attempting to have accredited representatives and attorneys work on site in shelters that serve asylum seekers who were paroled in. And by virtue of that parole, that one means of access of how they entered through a port of entry, they have an immediate access to work authorization. So we are trying to encourage the government to continue with these pathways by showing them that we can deliver on high number of applications. And so our big effort this year is standing up a legal services model directly in these shelters.
That's incredible. Thank you for that. We're going to also turn it now to some other folks in El Paso, people from the El Paso County. And Lore Gonzalez Flores, please take it away.
Hello, buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon. Lore Gonzalez Flores here with the Office of New Americans in El Paso, Texas. And thank you, Becca, again, for inviting us to be in this space to talk a little bit about El Paso County's regional humanitarian response. And just really quick, before I get into our humanitarian response, it's important to note that as Office of New Americans, there are two different populations we provide services to. First, it's existing El Paso County residents that are New Americans. And with them, we provide citizenship support. We help them with small business entrepreneurship support. We connect them to resources to continue their education. So that's one population. The other population, of course, it's going to be the asylum seekers, the newly arrivals. But again, thank you for having us in this space. And also wanted to add, I do have Alfonso Chacon, who is our Migrant Emergency Coordination Manager that's joining us on the call. But just a little bit of a history, the idea of having an ONA came from the need for coordination in 2018, 2019, when we first saw an increase of asylum seekers here in El Paso. Then local government had little to no humanitarian the local government didn't have or play a role in humanitarian welcome efforts. It has always been historically local NGOs, or more specifically Annunciation House, that has been at the forefront in providing migrant reception here in El Paso. But that actually became a concern when we were looking at the MPP wind down. The thought process around that was we can't have our interfaith or local NGOs do all the work. That just wasn't going to cut it, right? And so that's what. And my apologies. I'm actually working out of a coffee shop. Okay, but anyways, that's when we realized again we were seeing the MPP wind down, and we wanted to bring people together to discuss how we were going to respond as a region. From those conversations, we realized that transportation was going to be a huge need, and so that's where the El Paso County stepped in to support. And since then, we've been providing transportation support to our NGOs and individuals that are responding to the needs of asylum seekers. Fast forward 2022, we started hearing from our local advocacy groups and many of our humanitarian response organizations. They were basically asking local government to do more. There was a need for more support, and it was by divine intervention that we were introduced to the Brownsville model. We went out to visit Brownsville. We loved what we saw. We loved how we saw local government supporting local NGOs. And so we brought it back to El Paso. We proposed it to our commissioner's court. And of course, they approved for us to proceed with standing up what we call now the Migrant Support Services Center. So since October of 2022, we've assisted about 85,000 asylum seekers. It is a 365-day operation. We're open holidays, but it is not a shelter. It's think about it as a travel coordination center, travel agency. So when CBP and ICE releases individuals to our center, we the intake workers connect individuals to sponsors back home, and of course they get to sit down with the intake worker to coordinate travel. So the intake workers help them with purchasing their tickets. And so that's pretty much it. I do have Alfonso here. I don't know if Alfonso would like to add anything else to the regional humanitarian response. Oh, and one last thing before I turn it over to him. We El Paso County is we are strong supporters of communication, coordination, and transparency. So one of the things that we do also is we facilitate convenings. We bring people together here in El Paso through our biweekly shelter coordinator call. We've also partnered up with UNHCR, and we've hosted workshops for shelters here in El Paso. We are also working on setting up a resource page, and this is going to be like a one-stop shop for entities here in El Paso that are housing asylum seekers, and it's going to be a place where they can go and access all the resources that they need to better respond. But Alfonso, I don't know if you wanted to add something else to that. And thank you.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think Lori pretty much hit all the major points. with the Migrant Support Services Center, as Lori mentioned, it is a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 365-day week operation. So that makes it very easy for us to work with CBP and ICE because of the fact that they, of course, are operating 365 days a year. And with the MSSC, we have a contractor that put with the NCI group that they're all full-time paid employees, so they really have the ability to focus on getting individuals to their final destination. Whenever I speak to the migrants, and I've had the opportunity to do like orientations when they get dropped off, typically in the early morning, is our goal is for you all to get to where you want to live, not a midpoint if we can avoid that, because sometimes they think they need to get to one city to get travel to where they actually want to go to. And so the goal is for them to, because they come in with a lot of different information. This is the first day that they are free to be in the U.S. And with a lot of the disinformation that they get, some of it is very calculated in terms of wanting them to be available for certain bad actors. So our goal when they get there is to let them know you don't need a coyote. What we want to do is get you to where you want to live the fastest, the cheapest, and the safest way possible, which of course the safest being the main priority. And so for those that can leave the same day, we have different options through our airport, through our buses and so forth. Those that may not leave that day, maybe they can't purchase tickets for that same day, but may need a few days. Then we have a group of shelters that we directly sponsor through FEMA funding, what we call our subrecipients. And so we're in communication with them again every day of the week, holidays included. During Christmas, we were seeing over 700 people a day. There was a real big spike during Christmas where our NGOs could not handle the full all the families, so we were getting both single adults and families. And so we're able to coordinate with the shelters, our subrecipients, which currently are 5 shelters, but also the other shelters. We coordinate with our city counterparts, our Office of Emergency Management, and of course our federal partners and other nonprofits that are all part of the same effort. And so and I give Lori a ton of credit, because I think one of the most important things that she already said, but I just want to emphasize, is we have the county really tries to foster as much communication, and so that everyone is on the same page. We're extremely transparent with what our funding is being utilized for. I mean, it's an open records question if anyone ever wants to actually see the details. But for the most part, they know where our money is being sent, what resources we have between the MSSC, our 7-day-a-week charter operations that can help take individuals to the airport and from one location to another. But it's the communication that we have helped to facilitate, I think, has really made it about as comprehensive of a grassroots effort that started before the county got involved. But we've helped, I think, to enhance it. And that includes really building a good relationship with our federal partners. And the goal for this coming year is to really strengthen the relationship with the interior. And one thing that I think there's lacking is also even just communication among the entire U.S.-Mexico border. So those are goals that we have. But of course, we're always going to be tweaking our efforts within the region, which when we talk about El Paso, it includes east of El Paso and well into New Mexico. So it's a big region when we talk about the El Paso sector. So thank you.
It's an enormous region for people who geography is not their strength. It's huge. Thank you so much, Alfonso. Can you, Lori or Alfonso, talk a little bit about what lessons you hope other communities, state and local governments in particular, can learn from what your experiences in setting up these
Sure. Thank you, Becca. And so it's important, again, and Alfonso already mentioned it, but it's important to note that the regional success comes from the work that grassroots organizations have done long before we came along. So again, huge thanks to Las Americas, to DMRS, to Annunciation House that have been here for many, many years as an organization. But we came into this space to proactively and intentionally support that was already happening. And so it's important. What I would say is humanitarian response should not be an us or they thing. No one entity can do this alone. When you see local government and NGOs coming together for a safe, humane, and orderly welcome, the impact is greater and the reach goes further.
Thank you so much. And to sort of project into the very, very near future, we are going to talk a little bit about what you all have for coordination, what suggestions for the interior and things like that. Appreciate it. Dahina, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us about the Haitian Bridge Alliance, where you all work and your experiences in that region.
Thank you so much, Becca. And of course, thank you for inviting us to this. We feel very honored. So my name is Dahine Gustave, and I am the humanitarian director for the Haitian Bridge Alliance. HBA is based out of San Diego, but we have staff working all over the US as well as parts of Mexico. We advocate for fair and humane immigration policies. We provide migrants and immigrants with humanitarian, legal, and social services. And we do have a particular focus on the Black people, the Black community, the Haitian community, women and girls, LGBTQIA+ individuals, as well as survivors of torture and other human rights abuses. So as I mentioned, I head the humanitarian department, and within my department, our work encompasses the US and of course, as well as different ports of entries along the US-Mexico border. While we do have a presence all along the US-Mexico border, I would say that our right now, our main focus is in San Diego and Tijuana and Reynosa and Matamoros in Mexico. So for our border work, we work with shelters all along the border. We provide donations. We're always doing donation drives. We conduct Know Your Rights sessions in partnership with our legal department. And so basically we do our very best to be a bridge, kind of like our name, for the partners, and especially for the Haitian migrants, because there's often, a huge language barrier between organizations that want to serve this community but just can't really communicate with them. So that is a very strong focus for our department, is really just making sure there's equal access to information. And the best way that we can do that is utilizing our talented staff that are all speaks various languages. And so the work that we do on the border, we like to say that we get the migrants on the border, asylum seekers on the border, but then we try to keep in touch with them so that when they do cross into the US, they are able to reach out to us, because again, we do work on the Mexico side, but we also provide work on the US side. So as I mentioned, more for the Mexico side, it's more ensuring that asylum seekers have access to information, have access to their basic needs. So food, we provide tents for a lot of the different partners, different shelters along the border. Unfortunately, we sadly are the ones that are often called when there are deaths on the border. I myself, last year in June, I officiated the funeral of a little 8-year-old girl named Anadith, who passed away in CBP custody. So, that kind of gives an example of, working with the family, even, before they actually entered the US, making sure that they had the support that they need. And then once, we were able to get them into the US, helping out with the funeral arrangements, funeral costs, just really providing them that support. So, our work is, I like to say we wear so many different hats. And then in the US, once migrants actually cross, ideally through CBP-1, we provide them the resources that they need to be able to integrate into the US system, whether that is, working with our legal department and also partnering with other legal agencies to ensure that they're able to get a work permit, able to get a social security card. We work with other organizations to make sure they have housing. Really, really ensuring that ultimately they have the resources to get on their feet and be able to provide for their families, because that's really what they're here for. I'll also mention that a lot of our staff members have lived experience. I mean, I myself, I'm an immigrant from Haiti. And so it's I think it gives us a special kind of understanding of, not just the clients, but understanding the process, understanding, what it takes to, get to citizenship, or, we have a lot of staff that they themselves walk that arduous walk from, whether it's Haiti all the way here to the US. And so we're very grateful for that, because a lot of times other organizations will call us and say, hey, I had somebody call me yesterday and say, hey, I'm in Reynosa. We just saw a Haitian client in one of our clinics, and, she's going through a hard time. Can you just talk to her? Right. And it's just having that conversation in her language. Like, I can't fly and grab her and, bring her home with me, but I can connect with her in our language, and I can, try to make sure that she feels supported the best way that, I can. And so that kind of gives you guys an idea of how we go about our work, right? It's very much about the human connection. It's very much about welcoming migrants with dignity, just like we all would want to be welcomed. And really just, again, ensuring that not only are we helping to provide the basic resources, but we're also working to ensure that those other resources, such as English classes, driving lessons, and therapy, trauma therapy, right, for all those migrants that have been kidnapped and raped and abused and all kinds of stuff. So, making sure that even though us as a small organization, we don't have the bandwidth to do a lot of those things, but we have some amazing partners, amazing subject matter experts that we refer our clients to ensure that ultimately they're able to stand on their feet with dignity. I think that's it. Like I said, we do a lot, and I'm gonna leave space for my colleague Jeef, because he's gonna go more into the in-depth work that we're doing, whereas mine is just an overview. But yeah, I'll stop there, Becca.
Thank you so much, Dean. And before we turn it over to Jeef, can you talk a little bit about, the differences as you hear what is happening in El Paso, both the experience of newly arriving folks, but also the role of the local government, and how that compares or contrasts with some of the areas that you work, that Haitian Bridge Alliance works in?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much very similar. Ultimately we're all kind of combating the same policies, we're combating the same issues, we're, dealing with migrants who just don't have the basic necessities to keep going. And so I think as I was hearing them speak about El Paso, it just really resonated with me and sounded very similar to the types of things that we do. And Jeef will definitely go more into detail, but the work that we're doing in San Diego is a good example of working with CBP and with other partners to receive those street releases. And we also do intakes. We also we don't necessarily, us at at HBA, where we don't necessarily provide a connection with the sponsors. Most of the people that we do that comes through San Diego, most of them already have sponsors, and so we are just kind of just that in between to get them from, you know, San Diego and to get them to their final destination. So that may mean, you know, working with different organizations to make sure they can get flights. You know, sometimes they don't have the money to buy the flights. You know, sometimes it's, you know, simple things is like, where am I? Right? People get off the buses all the time and say their first question is, I need to tell my family where I am and where to buy a ticket from. Where am I? Right? And so, you know, it's like I said, I think it's very similar. I think we're all dealing with the same issues, same policies, same restrictions, and same lack of resources, although we're all doing the best we can.
Absolutely, and doing incredible work. So Jeef, I would love to bring you in at this point and talk a little bit about what is happening on the ground in the San Diego area and Haitian Bridge Alliance's incredible work that you're doing there.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Jeff Nelson. I'm the humanitarian administrator at Haitian Bridge Alliance. I've been working for about just about 3 years now with Haitian Bridge Alliance, working on both sides of the US border, which specifically Tijuana and San Diego. I would like to start off, you know, by giving you guys a brief explanation, or maybe share with you the situation, what's the Tijuana situation. So starting 2023 up to 2024, I've been seeing a drastic changes when it comes to immigration issues. And then the policies I've been referring to is pretty much the impact of the asylum ban on when it comes to the migrants, the asylum bans, which now creating a lot of weight when it comes to CBP1 appointment. So what's really going on in Tijuana right now? It's like we're seeing a decrease in terms of the migrants who usually comes to the border. And therefore, what's really going on is that the Mexican government has been implementing police and reinforcement at the northern part of the U.S. border, meaning that a lot of our Haitian migrants are getting stuck in Tijuana, Tapachula, and also in Mexico City. So therefore, no Haitian migrants and some other migrants can come to Tijuana without a CBP1 appointment. And then what that means, what that's created is just like a backlog in the CBP system where folks have to wait more than 6 months in order to get a CBP1 appointment. And therefore, organizations just like Haitian Bridge Alliance have to intervene to support those migrants who are getting stuck either in Mexico or in Tijuana especially. And then one way we do intervene is by providing KYRs. KYRs once a month with our legal departments. So just to combat rumors and misinformation that can put migrants at risk. And then we also, like Diana already mentioned, conduct funerals, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we already conducted since 2021 to 23, 9 funerals, 2 in Tapachula and then 7 in Tijuana. Those are usually people who died from lack of medical support, or maybe people usually get killed and shot. And we also conduct mobile clinics once a month to shelters, because we do, of course, partnered with 4 shelters, and that we're currently supporting those 4 shelters. And one of the reasons that we partner with the shelters is that those migrants, when they usually reach Tijuana, they usually lack resources, of course, because they've been waiting in Tapachula and Mexico City. All the resources have already drained, and when they come to TJ, they don't usually have enough money to rent a house, and therefore they turn to us and to local shelters. We do also have like one particular shelter that is called Villa Isiana, where we do provide tents, canopies, food, and shoes. Diana already mentioned it. I'm just going more in depth. Okay, with that, we do donation drives and stuff like that. And with the mobile clinic I mentioned, we do partner with organization called Refugee Alliance that provides medical assistance for free to folks, and that which is very important. And also, we do community outreach, and not only Haitians are living in shelters in Tijuana, they also some of them will have we can afford housing, usually rent small houses on that area, and then they go to church. What we do, we usually go to those churches just to reach out to them and then inform them about what's really going on, and then also let them know that we're there for them, and then that they can come to us. And on a monthly basis, I usually coordinate border visit, where we also accompany visitors. Folks we usually want to know what's going on and learn more about the job that we do on the ground. And then we do also provide rapid response to medical cases, such as like we usually have people with very urgent medical problems, such as cancer, such as high blood pressure, people with very urgent medical needs. So we do help out with that. And right now, I think the situation is that such that I think lately we have been IRM pretty much going door to doors, hotels to hotels, seeking migrants pretty much. And then to find out those who, and then what they usually do, they ask first for the paperwork, and then those who don't, they usually arrest them and send them back to Tapachula. And therefore, we are seeing some sort of fear in Tijuana. I think it's calm now, better now, because there have been some people have been submitted complaints, and then I think it's have been improved. And then also the recent storm has been damaged some of the shelters. So, and I think that I've been in touch with some of the shelters partnered with, and then I say some of them have the roof pretty much flew away, and also the roof, some of the roofs are damaged. Therefore, waters are being some of those places are pretty much inaccessible right now because they're located in very remote places, not in the Tijuana area per se. So on the U.S. side, I think Diane already talked about it briefly. I will go more in depth. So the street, it's a program called the Street Release. It started back on September 13th, 2023. When Custom and Border Patrol has been releasing migrants on the street. So we are currently at a welcome center called El Central, where we currently receive around 409 migrants a day. And therefore, those migrants come from around the world, okay, and from different countries. I'm just gonna state a few per se, and then we have migrants coming from Asia, Central America, Africa, Russia, Turkey, India, Jamaica. So in terms of Africa, I would say we have migrants coming from Senegal, Guinea, Togo, Sierra Leone, Morocco, Mauritania, Mali, Somalia, Togo, Egypt, Cameroon, Ghana. And we also have seen migrants coming from Peru, Colombia, when it comes to Central America, Cuba, Guatemala, Bolivia, Brazil, and Nicaragua. And for Asia, we've been receiving a lot of Chinese people. And I think just to respond to those huge flux of migrants, our staff on the ground works 7 days a week. They usually work 2 shifts, or a shift from 9 to 3, and another shift from 3 to 9, and they do work 7 days a week. So some of the services that we currently have available for those migrants at the welcome centers are French interpretations, because most migrants from Africa there are French speakers. Therefore, our staff are bilingual, trilingual, and they speak multiple languages. And French is one of them. And then I think, is one of the most important language needed there. So our staff are there for that. We also have a pointing center where we point out boarding pass and then make copies for the migrants. And then, like Dino already mentioned, when they come, first thing the migrant will ask is to, how can I, get my boarding pass, and or how can I have it ready, and then just to reach my final destination. And then we also have power station. The power stations are there for the migrants to charge their phone. And like I think it's one of the most important thing too, because when the guests will in their phone, usually dead, and then therefore they have to charge them. That's the first thing they do. We also have Wi-Fi connections available for them, and from there they can just have access to free Wi-Fi connections. And also we do have donations such as like warm clothes, jackets, and shoes and hygiene kits. Why am I putting the focus on warm jackets? Just because most of these migrants are going to very cold states like Chicago, New York. So that's why we have those also. I think to sum up, I would say that we often solicit volunteers when it comes to Mandarin and Arabic interpretation, because there's also always a need for those kind of languages. So I think that I will start from here, because for the sake of time. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Yves. Yeah, and so just in the interest of time, I'm gonna ask my panelists for permission to go on to some of the questions for you all to talk between each other, amongst each other, and to hopefully, I'd love to start first with some of the folks from El Paso to explain, and just maybe a couple of the best, your top 2 or 3 points. What kind of coordination between government and nonprofits has worked, and what is needed? We're hoping that our local communities in the interior, who are trying to catch up to what the border communities have been doing for many years, can learn some lessons from you all.
I'll go ahead and answer this one. So and again, this is something that has been fostered for a while, where the coordination that we don't want anyone to feel that we're trying to come in and be the boss. So we want to come in as a partner, not as a supervisor. And in doing so, we want to share all of the resources that we have, and hopefully get our partners to do the same. And with everyone sharing the resources, then we can identify what are the real gaps. And then in identifying the gaps, who is best able to address them, primarily through funding, of course, because if the funding is there, then the collaboration just becomes that much better. And so it's sharing the resources, communicating that on a regular basis. It's got to be really consistent. When our surges go up, we tend to go from a bi-weekly shelter coordinator meeting to a weekly. And then of course, in between that, there's a lot of emails, a lot of phone conversations, texting, and so forth that takes place. But the other thing is trying to be as proactive as possible. There are a lot of ebbs and flows. So right now we're actually a little slow, but that can change very quickly. So with the county, we've got a lot of bureaucracy that we're trying to catch up with. But as being as proactive, we know where our funding is with the SSP funding. We know that we've got solid funding till the end of September 2025. So we should be planning well into that with all of the partners. And that way they know what we're planning on do with pretty much every penny. Not that there's not room for tweaking, but trying to be as transparent, letting them know this is strategically where we plan on being in 2 years. Ideally, it would be even 5 years from now, but I think things are so unpredictable right now that may be a little bit harder. Lori, anything else?
Actually, let's turn it over to Jennifer, and from the NGO side of that, if that's okay. Thanks.
Yeah. No, Alfonso, I really appreciate that. I think the other thing I've noticed is just the county has had an open door policy as opposed to really the city. Like we have a very different relationship, and that has made a big difference. So in terms of for us, for example, you know, sometimes a shelter coordinator or someone from the migration office will just come to our door and kind of say, like, I've heard these two disparate rumors about what's going on with CBP. Can you help us clarify? Because that's going to impact like what I should be saying when we're doing our orientation or how to answer some questions. I think there's more resources we could probably put into that, but that's a good sign for me and something I would contrast with when I was in New York and observing sort of the tension between NGOs that wanted to provide some kind of welcome services when folks were being bussed in by Texas. And it's really sort of like the state has helped unite us. So for better or worse, I don't know if I should give our governor some kudos, but it's like we have a mutual issue where there's stuff going on that causes intense confusion, and we have to rely on our network to make sure that we're getting people off the street, getting them shelter, and helping them move along in the way they need to go. I'll also just share that the county is a co-plaintiff in our litigation against SB4. And that was really important to us, that it was not just the NGOs stating that this is bad policy, our city can't implement this, this isn't making our communities safer.
That is really incredible. Thanks for pointing that out also. I don't know if the folks from Haitian Bridge, if you want to discuss any kind of coordination that you all have with local government and how you see that.
Yeah, I would agree with Jennifer. I mean, I'll definitely say that from my experience, things are okay. They're good. You know, I think there always just needs to be a fair balance, right? Because like for HBA, for instance, you know, a lot of times we hear that, you know, there is not a lot of Haitians crossing between ports. They're all using CBP1, you know, and we've done, you know, our best to ensure that they have that information. They know that's the best route to go. But we're often, you know, asking, you know, different agencies, different governmental agencies to be more communicative with us, because a lot of times we're the ones passing the information on to the migrants. And so if we just always need to have the most current, up-to-date, accurate information. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for us to dispel rumors and to make sure that, you know, I mean, I'll think about when Title 42 was being lifted. I mean, it was craziness because, you know, to a migrant, they don't know what that means. Title 42 is being lifted, right? And so people were saying, oh, the border's open. It's open now. It's a free for all. And so, you know, we had to quickly jump onto that and start making educational videos for our clients, and also, you know, connecting with different partners all along the US-Mexico border to make sure that they have the accurate information. And so I think all in all, things are okay, but there can always be better communication.
Go for it, Jennifer.
The other thing I had wanted to share is that it's also like the collaboration is crucial because of funding. You know, like for us, we really want to stay independent. We don't accept any government funding. And but if our county or other government counterparts can, that means that we can then like figure out how to gap fill. And it's not like the pressure isn't just on one entity, but being super transparent about that is so crucial from the get-go, because in a dream universe, you can say, it looks like we have shared interests. You county, you could probably take this FEMA funding and this can go to that. In the meantime, we'll figure out a private donor to do the direct services that folks are going to need once they're in that site. And I think that's crucial. And there's a lot more that we could like experiment with collaborating that way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it sort of segues into our next question, which is, you know, what advice would you give to the communities that are struggling to stand up some responses to larger numbers of newly arriving folks than they potentially expected.
So Lori again here with the El Paso County. So I would say prepare, communicate, collaborate. Prepare, communicate, collaborate. As much as possible, we've actually had conversations with other ONA offices throughout the country, where we tell them like, hey, don't be caught flat-footed. You do have an office where you're promoting welcoming initiatives and policies. Be ready, be prepared. Alfonso, anything else you wanted to add to that?
Real short is, although this is very convenient to do it via Teams, whether you're hundreds of miles apart or 10 minutes apart, but doing, at least having, whether we had an after action work group, we've had some educational workshops, trainings, there's a lot more that can be done. Well, maybe not a lot more, but there are definitely things that you can do when you meet in person that you just don't get on Teams. So that's all I would add is try and meet face to face when and if possible.
That's really helpful. And Daheen, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say that I think it's really important to again to have that shared communication, amongst organizations, but also, I know when the humanitarian parole program, once the Haitians were added, and since January of 2023, it's been really challenging because we are receiving, migrants from the border, but we're also receiving people through the humanitarian program. And so we have been working on building like a database to where people can come and access information, but then, of course, it's going to be online so people can access it from anywhere. But I will say through my experience last year, just kind of dealing with all the new arrivals, is that we just have a lack of communication. We have a lack even amongst these amazing organizations, because the more I started networking, the more I started figuring out, oh, this is already, I was trying to build something, and then I'm like, oh, you guys already have this here. Oh, you guys in Atlanta you're already doing this. So I think when it's one person trying to tackle a million things, it does seem very overwhelming. But I just encourage everybody to really look into who their partner organizations are. And it may be an organization that doesn't look like you, doesn't do the type of, they may just focus on legal, and then we may just focus on humanitarian. However, the more collaborations that we do, the more we can kind of work together to know of all the resources that there are, because there's a lot of resources, but without that communication, we just won't know it.
Yeah, I'm like jumping out of my seat of wanting to talk about this, because there is so much myth over like what's going on at the border and why are people going to certain cities and how are they getting there. And so for anyone out there at another organization in the interior, reach out. I mean, like something I've been trying to do is little 20-minute intro sessions to organizations that are in the interior, to just explain like, here's what we do. Here's how I can be a resource. Are you a legal shop? Do you want to understand why someone has the paperwork they do? Are you a social work shop? Are you trying to figure out this person's status and why they didn't get something different before they came to you? Like things like that, where we have a lot to collaborate on. And to Daheen's point, the resources are there. We're not fighting actually for the same resources. What we're fighting for is a clear narrative. And then of course in Texas, busing is real. But like, I as an NGO, I'm not going to my different clients and like advocating, get on this bus so you can get to Chicago. I mean, the reality is that people have family, they have networks, and my job is to figure out how much can I get them prepared before they travel onwards. And that's absolutely what our intention is. That's what we want to do. It's safer for everybody anyway. And so, yeah, I just like really want to encourage, I think that we have a lot more that we can be collaborating on, so that when we dispel myths amongst each other, then we dispel myths among the communities we serve.
Thank you for that. That's a fantastic way to put it. Thanks, Jennifer. So I know that we're running up on time, and we don't want to overstay the welcome of our panelists, who are very, very busy. So just want to put out a couple of things. I know we did not get to our question and answer session, although we tried to do some mix it in as we go. We have a slide up now. We're also going to email this that has all the organization's websites. My email is in the chat, and I know Alfonso, some other folks also put their emails in the chat. Please, if you have a question that didn't get answered, or you have other things you want to coordinate with, reach out to, if you reach out to me, I can distribute it to the various panelists or other people on the panel individually. I will ask folks to do one more thing. What is one thing that people on this panel can do to address the situation at the border? And you can direct that at a wider audience, at the federal government, whoever you want.
I'll just jump in real quick and say, just remember that people are people. I think, you know, like I said before, we really try to welcome everybody with dignity, regardless of whether they're Haitian or, you know, Cuban or whatever the color, race, it doesn't matter. And so I think for everybody, for, you know, fellow NGOs, for the federal government, like, these are human beings. Like, I think just that by itself is something that's kind of powerful if people let themselves meditate on that.
I'm like, donate. Donate. And also, I mean, if you have access to students, law students, undergrad, community members, impacted community who are migrants, refugees, people on the move themselves, and they want to get involved, then connect them to us. Because I mean, something we're experts at is plugging people in, helping folks organize in their own communities. And I think that way we're not feeling like we're all doing it alone.
To Jen's point, again, I do want to invite you all at some point in the future, if you're curious about what's actually happening here in El Paso, we invite you to come and visit our center, visit with some of our shelters. But one thing I also want to leave with you all is I want to encourage you all to become informed as much as possible with current and factual information. I think we still need to do a lot of work on changing that narrative. Host information sessions, be active on your socials. But again, I think that's one of the needs or gaps right now, is the need to change the narrative and educate, you know, communities and constituents.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to drop in real quick. I think one of the needs that we have in San Diego, it's volunteers. I will encourage anyone that speak Mandarin or Arabic or any other languages to come and volunteers with us, because we do need those kind of interpretation assistance. Yes.
Volunteer, donate, coordinate, and reach out to folks. Thank you all so much. I hope this is a good start to some conversations, and that we'll be able to continue talking about this and learning from our border communities that have been holding it down for quite some time. Thanks, folks, for joining us. And as we said, we're going to send out this the recording of this with some of our resources afterwards. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you for having